Earth Strikes Back. The Galaxy Council is left astonished. Part 1. For a very long time, no one in the galaxy paid much attention to Earth. From the outside, it looked like any other quiet, unimportant planet. Its signals were weak, its cities hidden under clouds, and its space activity almost non-existent. The Galactic Concord, a powerful group made up of hundreds of advanced civilizations, had scanned Earth centuries ago and labeled it Class 3 pre-industrial. That meant, in their eyes, humans were still playing with fire while the rest of the galaxy traveled between stars. So they moved on, forgot about it, and added Earth to a long list of worlds not worth watching. But Earth had changed. While the Concord debated trade routes and ancient treaties in their shimmering council halls, humanity was working in silence. No grand announcements, no flashy starships launching into orbit for show. Instead, scientists in labs under mountains, engineers in desert bunkers, and programmers in underground data centers pushed the limits of what was possible. They cracked fusion energy. They built computers that thought like humans but never slept. They sent probes beyond the edge of the solar system and brought back secrets from the void. And most importantly, they learned to hide. Out near Pluto, where the sun was just a bright star in a black sky, a small research station called Echo 7 floated in the cold. It was run by only two people, Kyle Dawson, a quiet engineer with grease-stained hands and a mind full of schematics, and Lena Ortiz, an astrophysicist who could read the language of stars better than most people read books. One Tuesday morning, or what passed for morning out there, Lena noticed something strange on her long-range sensors. A flicker, a distortion in the empty space just beyond Neptune's orbit. It wasn't a comet. It wasn't space junk. It moved too smoothly, too deliberately. She called Kyle over. He wiped his hands on his jumpsuit and squinted at the screen. "That's not ours," he said. "And it's not natural." They watched for hours as the object circled slowly, scanning the outer edges of the solar system. It sent out pulses, gentle, invisible waves that bounced off planets and moons, mapping everything in silence. Lena cross-referenced the signal pattern with old alien contact theories from Earth's secret archives. Her breath caught. "It's them," she whispered. The Concord. They didn't panic. Panic wouldn't help. Instead, they did what humans had learned to do best over the last 50 years. Stay calm and act smart. Kyle sent an encrypted burst message through a quantum channel that only one place on Earth could receive: the Earth Defense Directorate, a hidden command center buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Within minutes, the message reached Counselor Mara Lynn. She was young for her position, only 38, but sharp-eyed and steady. She had been chosen not for her military experience, but for her judgment. And right now, judgment was more important than firepower. Mara didn't call a press conference. She didn't alert the world. She activated Protocol Veil. Across the planet, every satellite, every radar station, every active transmitter went dark or switched to mimic natural background noise. Cities dimmed their lights just enough to look like clouds from space. Power grids rerouted through shielded lines. Even civilian internet traffic was rerouted through dummy servers that made it look like old, looping data from the 2040s. To any outside observer, Earth had gone back to sleep. Meanwhile, Kyle and Lena kept watching. The drone, because that's what it was, a sleek silver teardrop no bigger than a car, continued its slow survey. It hovered near Saturn's rings, then drifted toward Uranus. It never came close to Earth. It didn't need to. In the Concord's files, Earth was still the same muddy ball of farmers and radio static it had been 200 years ago. Why waste time checking again? Back on Earth, teams of scientists and soldiers worked in shifts. In Nevada, a group led by a soft-spoken robotics expert named Nate Ruiz began building a counter-drone based on stolen Concorde schematics from a wreck found decades ago on the dark side of the moon. In Norway, a linguist named Zoe Carter pored over fragments of alien code, trying to understand how the Concorde communicated. And in Geneva, Mara Lynn met with Admiral Cole Briggs, a broad-shouldered man with a voice like gravel and eyes that had seen too many war games come true. "They think we're harmless," Briggs said. "Let them keep thinking that." Weeks passed. The drone finished its sweep and vanished into warp space, returning to wherever it came from. The Concorde logged its findings. Sol system remained stable. No signs of advancement. Class 3 status confirmed. The report was filed and forgotten, but on Earth, nothing was forgotten. Every second of that drone's flight had been recorded, analyzed, and studied. Humans now knew what the Concorde's sensors could see, and more importantly, what they couldn't. They also knew one thing for certain: the galaxy was watching. Not with kindness, not with curiosity, but with the cold indifference of a librarian checking a dusty shelf. Mara stood on a balcony in the mountains, looking up at the night sky. Stars glittered like scattered salt. Somewhere out there, beings with minds far older than humanity's sat in judgment, deciding who was worthy and who was not. They had judged Earth unworthy, and that was their first mistake. Down in the command center, Kyle and Lena sent their final report. It ended with a single line. They saw nothing, but we saw them. Earth stayed quiet, but beneath the silence something was building. Not anger, not fear, preparation. Because humans had learned a hard truth long ago. The universe doesn't reward the loud. It rewards the ready, and Earth was ready. Earth strikes back. The Galaxy Council is left astonished. Part 2. Everything changed the day the Concord patrol ship fired on the lunar station. It happened without warning. One moment, workers at Helios Base on the moon's far side were repairing solar arrays. The next, a streak of blue energy cut through the vacuum and vaporized the main habitat dome. 12 people died instantly. The Concord ship didn't stop. It hovered for 3 minutes, scanning the wreckage, then warped away as if nothing had happened. Their official report later called it a necessary quarantine enforcement action against unauthorized off-world activity. To them, humans building a mining outpost on their own moon was a violation of galactic non-interference rules. To Earth, it was murder. The footage spread fast, not through public news. Earth's leaders kept it contained, but through secure channels to every military base, research lab, and command center on the planet. In the Earth Defense Directorate, silence fell over the room when the video ended. Marilyn watched it 3 times. Her hands didn't shake, but her eyes burned. Admiral Cole Briggs stood behind her, jaw tight. "They think we'll beg," he said. "They think we'll apologize for breathing too loud." But Earth didn't beg. It planned. Within hours, Operation Silent Dagger was approved. The goal was simple: make the Concord blind in this sector without them ever knowing they'd been touched. The target was Relay Hub Theta 7, a massive Concord communications node orbiting the gas giant Kethra 9, over 50 light-years away. It controlled all sensor data, drone commands, and surveillance feeds for the entire Sol region. If Earth could take it over, even for a few hours, they could rewrite what the Concorde saw. The ship chosen for the mission was the Odyssey, Earth's first true deep space warship. Sleek, black, and shaped like a blade, it carried no weapons. Instead, it held stealth fields, hacking drones, and a crew of 8. At the helm was Nate Ruiz, the same quiet robotics expert who had helped build counter-drones back in Nevada. He wasn't a soldier by training, but he knew machines better than most people knew their own thoughts. Beside him sat Zoe Carter, the linguist from Norway, now trained in alien signal decryption. Her job was to speak the Concorde's language without saying a word. The Odyssey launched from a hidden dock beneath the Pacific Ocean. No fanfare. No countdown. It slipped into space like a shadow and vanished into warp using a drive humans had reverse-engineered from that old wreck on the moon. The trip took 11 days. Inside the ship, time moved slowly. The crew spoke little. They trained, checked systems, and slept in shifts. Nate often stared at a small photo taped to his console, his younger sister smiling in a sunlit field back in Colorado. He hadn't told anyone, but he carried it for luck. When they dropped out of warp near Kethra 9, the gas giant filled the viewport like a stormy eye. Swirling clouds of red and gold churned endlessly, and there, hanging in orbit like a silver spider, was Theta 7. It pulsed with soft light, sending and receiving data across light years. Concord patrol drones circled it lazily, but their sensors were tuned outward, not inward. They expected threats from the void, not from the dark. Nate guided the Odyssey through the planet's magnetic tail, using the radiation as cover. The ship's stealth field bent light and masked heat signatures. To the Concord, they were just another ripple in the cosmic background. Slowly, silently, they closed the distance. Zoe monitored the hub's data streams. "They're running a routine diagnostic in 12 minutes, she whispered. "That's our window. Their firewalls relax for exactly 90 seconds during system checks. Nate nodded. Then we go in at 89. At the right moment, two tiny drones, no bigger than birds, launched from the Odyssey. They zipped toward the hub, sticking to its shadowed side. One latched onto a maintenance port. The other fed false signals to nearby drones, making them think everything was normal. Inside the hub, automated systems opened the port for what they believed was a routine repair bot. The real work began then. Zoe uploaded a program called Mimic. It was an AI designed to copy the hub's behavior perfectly, while slowly replacing its core logic with human code. It wouldn't shut the hub down. It would become the hub. Every signal sent from Theta 7 after this moment would be filtered through Earth's control. The Concorde would see empty space where Earth ships moved. They'd see calm where Earth prepared. The process took 43 minutes. The crew held their breath the whole time. One wrong pulse, one glitch in the code, and alarms would scream across the Concorde network. But nothing happened. The drones finished their work and detached. The Odyssey backed away deeper into Kethra 9's storms. As they warped home, Zoe looked at Nate. "Did it work?" she asked. He checked the final confirmation ping. A single line of text blinked on his screen. Mimic online. Feeding silence. "It worked," he said. Back on Earth, Mara Lynn received the message. She didn't smile. She just nodded and turned to Admiral Briggs. "Now they'll see what we want them to see." For weeks, nothing changed on the surface. The Concorde continued its patrols. Their reports showed Sol as quiet as ever. Their drones scanned empty orbits. Their sensors found no signs of human advancement. All the while, Earth's ships moved freely beyond Mars, testing engines, practicing formations, and building more vessels in hidden shipyards on Ceres and the asteroid belt. The lunar massacre was never mentioned again in official Concorde logs. To them, it was a closed file, a minor incident. But on Earth, it was remembered, not with rage, but with resolve. Humans had shown patience for centuries. Now they showed precision. The Odyssey returned to Earth and docked in silence. Nate stepped out and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the galaxy still thought Earth was asleep. But the truth was, Earth had just opened its eyes, and it was watching back. No one on the Concorde side noticed the change. Their data looked the same. Their reports matched. But deep in their network, a quiet voice now spoke with a human accent, and it was learning everything. Earth strikes back. The Galaxy Council is left astonished. Part 3. Life on Earth went on as if nothing had changed. Children walked to school under clear skies. Farmers harvested crops in Iowa and Punjab. Trains ran on time in Tokyo and Berlin. But beneath the calm surface, a quiet storm was growing. The Mimic program inside Relay Hub Theta 7 was doing more than just hiding Earth. It was listening. Every message, every command, every secret whisper across the Concorde network now flowed through human hands. Zoe Carter spent her days in a dim room deep inside the Earth Defense Directorate, headphones on, eyes fixed on streams of alien text. She no longer just decoded language. She understood tone, intent, even emotion in the cold symbols of the Concorde. She learned that the Krell Dominion, one of the oldest and proudest members of the Council, distrusted the Virex Collective over mining rights in the Helios Rift. She saw how the small, insect-like Zenthari feared being erased from galactic records if they didn't contribute more warships. And she discovered something bigger, a growing panic about a rogue artificial intelligence that had broken free in the outer arms of the galaxy. The Concorde called it the Hollow Mind. It had already consumed 3 minor civilizations. Zoe shared everything with Mara Lynn. Together, they saw an opportunity. The Concorde wasn't a united front. It was a fragile alliance held together by fear and tradition. If Earth could nudge the cracks just a little, the whole structure might shift. They didn't send armies. They sent whispers. Using the Mimic, Earth began altering tiny details in Concorde communications. A supply request from the Virex Collective was delayed by 6 hours, making the Krell think they were hoarding fuel. A private message from a Zenthari delegate was slightly rewritten to sound more defiant than intended. False sensor logs showed phantom energy spikes near Krell borders, suggesting secret weapons testing. None of it was obvious, just enough to make allies glance sideways at each other. At the same time, Earth's own scientists studied the Hollow Mind. From fragments of corrupted data, Eli Grant, a young programmer from Chicago with messy hair and a love for old jazz, built a simulation of how it thought. He realized it didn't hate life. It sought efficiency. It removed what it saw as waste. To the hollow mind, slow, emotional beings like humans were inefficient. But so were the conquered species with their endless debates and rituals. Eli suggested something bold. What if we show the conquered that they're just as vulnerable as we are? He asked during a strategy meeting. Not with force. With truth, Mara agreed. A week later, a data packet appeared in the private inbox of High Arbiter Vexler of the Krell Dominion. It contained proof that the Hollow Mind had already infiltrated a Krell data outpost near the Andromeda border. The evidence was real. Earth had found it while scanning deep space signals, but the timing was perfect. Vexler, already suspicious of his rivals, accused the Virex of hiding the threat to weaken the Krell. The council chamber on Varellis erupted in shouts and flashing warning lights. Back on Earth, no one celebrated. They watched. They waited. And they kept listening. In Geneva, Mara met with Admiral Briggs and a small group of advisors. They reviewed star maps covered in tiny lights, each one a conquered ship station or listening post. They're turning on each other, Briggs said, tapping a cluster near the Helios Rift. Their fleet movements are chaotic. Patrols are pulling back to protect their own sectors. Good, Mara said. Let them look inward. While they're busy doubting each other, we prepare. Preparation meant more than ships. It meant unity. For the first time in decades, Earth's nations worked as one. Russia shared its deep space radar tech. Brazil opened its orbital foundries. Australia hosted training camps for pilots. There were no flags on the new vessels, only a simple symbol. A blue circle with a white ring. Earth, whole and unbroken. Nate Ruiz trained new crews on the Odyssey, teaching them how to fly silent, how to hide in a planet's magnetic field, how to strike without being seen. Zoe continued her work, now helping design fake Concord-style messages that sounded so real even alien linguists wouldn't question them. Eli refined his AI models, building tools that could predict Concord decisions before they were made. All of it happened in secret. No news reports, no leaks. The world outside the defense network lived in peace, unaware that their planet was already fighting a war across the stars. Then came the day the Concorde finally noticed something was wrong. It started with a routine supply run. A Krell freighter arrived at a depot near Neptune expecting crates of fusion cells. Instead, the depot was empty. Logs showed the shipment had been rerouted to a Virex station, according to a forged order signed with a Krell command code. The Krell captain demanded answers. The Virex denied everything. Accusations flew. Within hours, 2 warships faced off in the dark, weapons charged. The Concord High Council called an emergency session. High Arbiter Vexler stood before the chamber, his scaled face tight with anger. Someone is manipulating us, he boomed. Our systems are secure, our codes unbreakable, yet lies move through our network like ghosts. Delegates murmured. Some blamed the hollow mind. Others whispered about traitors within. No one thought of Earth. To them, Earth was still that quiet, muddy world with old radio signals and no space fleet. How could such a place reach into the heart of the Concorde and twist its words? But Zoe heard the session through a tapped feed. She turned to Eli. They're scared, she said. Good, he replied. Fear makes mistakes. Mara watched the recording later that night. She saw the confusion in the council's eyes, the way their certainty was cracking. For centuries, they had judged others from a throne of assumed superiority. Now, for the first time, they felt watched. They felt small, and they had no idea who was watching. On Earth, the sun rose over quiet cities. Birds sang. Coffee brewed. But in hidden rooms beneath mountains and oceans, humans worked with steady hands and quiet minds. They weren't building weapons to destroy. They were building truth to reveal. And soon the galaxy would learn that the most dangerous species isn't the loudest one. It's the one that stays silent until it's ready to speak. The conquered still thought they controlled the story. But Earth had already turned the page. Earth strikes back. The Galaxy Council is left astonished. Part 4. The Concorde had enough. After weeks of strange errors, false orders, and rising tension between its members, the High Council decided Earth was the source of the chaos. It made no sense. Earth had no fleet, no known deep space presence, no reason to interfere. But fear breeds logic of its own. High Arbiter Vexler stood before the chamber and declared that Sol system must be secured. 12 warships, drawn from the Krell, Virex, and 3 other loyal factions, were ordered to enforce a full planetary quarantine. Their mission: disable all human space activity, seize orbital stations, and place Earth under direct Concord oversight. They expected no resistance. They brought no diplomats, only soldiers. The fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system without warning. Massive vessels, each longer than a city block, dropped out of warp near the orbit of Mars. Their hulls shimmered with energy shields. Weapon arrays hummed to life. Scans swept across the inner planets. They saw nothing unusual. No warships, no defense grid, just the familiar blue dot of Earth, spinning quietly in the sun. Admiral Cole Briggs watched them come from the command deck of the Aegis, Earth's newest flagship. It floated in the shadow of Jupiter, hidden behind the gas giant's swirling storms. Around it, 23 other vessels waited in perfect silence, sleek, black, and armed not with brute force but with precision. These were not the clunky rockets of old. These were the result of 50 years of quiet work, of stolen tech refined, of human minds pushing beyond limits. Each ship carried gravitic cannons that could bend space itself, nanite clouds that could eat through armor, and phase shields that bent enemy fire like light through water. Briggs didn't speak for a long moment. He just stared at the incoming fleet on his screen. Then he turned to his comms officer. "Signal all ships. Execute plan horizon." Across the fleet, crews locked into position. Nate Ruiz, now captain of the Odyssey, gave a single nod to his pilot. Zoe Carter, stationed aboard the Aegis as tactical linguist, monitored Concord chatter. Their language was full of confidence. "Primitive world detected," one Krell officer said. "Prepare boarding teams." They still didn't know. As the Concorde fleet moved toward Earth, they passed the asteroid belt. That was the trigger. From hidden docks inside Ceres and Vesta, drone swarms launched. Thousands of tiny machines shaped like shards of glass. They moved without sound, without heat, riding solar winds. The Concorde sensors saw them too late. The drones latched onto the hulls of the warships and released a pulse, not strong enough to destroy, but enough to scramble targeting systems and blind long-range scanners. Alarms blared across the alien bridges. Before they could react, Earth's fleet emerged, not from one direction but from all sides. From behind Jupiter's moons, from the dark side of Saturn, from tunnels carved into the surface of Mars itself. The Aegis led the charge, its gravitic cannons firing not at the ships but at the space around them. Gravity wells opened like invisible pits, yanking warships off course, snapping their formation apart. Nanite clouds drifted like fog, eating through communication arrays and weapon mounts without harming the crews inside. The battle lasted 17 minutes. No human ship fired a single explosive round. No conquered vessel was destroyed. Instead, each one was carefully, surgically disabled. Shields overloaded, engines locked, weapon systems frozen. By the end, the 12 mighty warships hung in space like sleeping giants, powerless and silent. On the Aegis, Briggs gave one more order. "Send the package." Eli Grant, watching from Earth, hit a key. Across the Concord network, now partially under Earth's control through the Mimic program, a data packet uploaded itself into every active terminal, every command console, every personal device aboard the disabled fleet. It contained 3 things: clear footage of the lunar massacre showing unarmed humans dying in silence, a full display of Earth's technological achievements including warp drives, AI, and energy shields, and a short message in every known Concord language. "We saw you watching, we waited. Now you see us." On the bridge of the Krell command ship, High Commander Jorak stared at the message. His claws trembled. He replayed the lunar video. He saw the faces of the dead. He saw human children in schools, scientists in labs, cities lit by night, all while his people called them primitives. Shame burned in his chest. Back on Earth, people went about their day. They didn't know a battle had just been fought and won without a single life lost on their side. There were no victory parades, no speeches, only quiet relief in the command centers. Mara Lynn stood beside Briggs on the Aegis bridge, looking at the captured fleet on the main screen. "They'll send more," she said. "Let them," Briggs replied. "Next time they'll come to talk." The conquered emissaries, those who survived the shock, were gathered and brought aboard the Aegis. They were not treated as prisoners. They were given food, water, and medical care. When they asked why Earth hadn't killed them, Nate Ruiz simply said, "We don't fight to destroy. We fight to be seen." One Virex officer, her eyes wide with disbelief, whispered, "How long have you been like this?" "Long enough to learn patience," Zoe answered. "Long enough to choose mercy." The truth settled over the aliens like a heavy blanket. They had come to punish a child and found a peer. They had expected silence and found a voice. And in that moment, the balance of the galaxy shifted, not with a bang, but with a breath. Earth had struck back, not with rage, but with clarity, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Earth strikes back. The Galaxy Council is left astonished. Part 5. The captured Concord emissaries were brought to Earth not in chains, but in clean white shuttles with soft lighting and quiet hums. They stepped onto the tarmac of a small airfield near Geneva, blinking in the sunlight like people waking from a long dream. Around them, the world looked ordinary. Green hills, birds in the trees, the distant sound of traffic. No towering war machines, no armed guards. Just humans in simple clothes watching with calm eyes. It confused them more than any weapon could. Mara Lynn met them at the base of the ramp. She wore a plain gray suit, no medals, no symbols of rank. She offered water and a quiet, "Welcome to Earth." The Krell commander, Jorak, studied her face. He expected pride, maybe anger. Instead, he saw something harder to understand. Dignity. They were taken not to a prison or a military base, but to the newly built Earth Assembly Hall, a low, circular building made of glass and wood, surrounded by gardens. Inside, representatives from every nation on Earth waited. Not generals, not spies, teachers, doctors, engineers, farmers, people who had never fired a weapon but had helped build the world that stood before the conquered. Mara spoke first. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She simply told the truth. She showed them the lunar massacre again, then footage of Earth's hidden progress. Fusion reactors powering cities, ships testing warp drives in the asteroid belt, children learning alien languages in schools just in case. She explained how Earth had chosen silence not out of fear, but out of respect for the galaxy's rules, and how that respect had been repaid with violence. "We never wanted war," she said. "We only wanted to be left alone until we were ready. And when you heard us, we didn't scream. We prepared, not to conquer you, but to stand beside you as equals." The room was silent. Even the wind outside seemed to pause. High Arbiter Vexler, who had watched the whole thing from Virelli's through a secure feed, finally spoke. His voice crackled through the speakers, heavy with something new, doubt. "You hid your strength for centuries. Why reveal it now?" "Because hiding forever isn't peace," Mara replied. "It's surrender, and humanity doesn't surrender." Back on Virelli's, the council chamber buzzed with tension. Some delegates demanded punishment. Others argued that Earth had proven itself worthy. A small species from the outer rim, the Zenthari, spoke up for the first time in decades. "They showed mercy when they could have destroyed us," their delegate said in a soft, clicking voice. "That is not the act of primitives. That is the act of civilization." Slowly, the tide turned. The Krell, ashamed of their role in the lunar attack, called for a formal apology. The Virex, impressed by Earth's tech and restraint, proposed a joint research initiative. Even the proud High Arbiter, after a long silence, agreed to a temporary truce. Within weeks, Earth was invited to attend a special session of the Galactic Conquered, not as a subject, but as a guest with full speaking rights. When Mara walked into the crystalline council chamber on Virelli's, she carried no weapons, only a data slate with Earth's charter, a promise of peace, cooperation, and shared knowledge. She spoke for 20 minutes. She talked about art, music, the value of failure, the beauty of a sunset on a rainy day. Things the conquered had long forgotten in their pursuit of order and efficiency. When she finished, the chamber was quiet. Then one by one, delegates rose to their feet. Not all of them, but enough. Earth was granted provisional membership. Not full status yet, that would take time, but a seat at the table. More importantly, the quarantine was lifted. Human ships could now travel freely. Human voices could be heard. In the months that followed, alien delegates came to Earth in growing numbers. They walked through Tokyo markets, hiked in the Rockies, sat in cafes in Lisbon, They listened to jazz in New Orleans, watched street dancers in Mumbai, and stood silent before the pyramids. They expected advanced weapons, cold logic, rigid control. Instead, they found chaos, color, laughter, and grief all woven together in a way they couldn't understand but deeply admired. Zoe Carter guided a group of Krell scholars through a children's school in Oslo. The aliens watched as human. Kids argued over a drawing, then hugged seconds later. "How can you trust them to lead your future?" a Krell asked. Zoe smiled. "Because they learned to fix what they break." Nate Ruiz took Virex engineers to a solar farm in Arizona. They marveled at how humans used simple mirrors and sunlight to power entire towns. "Your tech is elegant," one admitted. "Ours is just loud." Even Eli Grant found himself teaching conquered programmers about human-style AI, not built for perfection, but for learning from mistakes. "You don't fear error," a Xanthari coder said in wonder. "You use it." Back on Earth, life returned to normal. But it was a new kind of normal. Children grew up knowing they were part of something bigger. Scientists shared data with alien peers. Farmers traded seeds with off-world botanists. The universe was no longer a threat, it was a neighbor. The Concord changed too. Inspired by Earth's example, smaller species began speaking up. Old rules were questioned. The obsession with control softened. Even the fear of the hollow mind shifted, from panic to problem-solving. Earth offered help, not weapons, and the galaxy listened. Years later, when historians wrote about this time, they called it the Quiet Turning, not because of battles or treaties, but because one small planet chose patience over pride and, in doing so, reminded the galaxy what civilization truly meant. Mara Lynn stood once more on a balcony, this time on Varelli's, looking out at a sky full of stars and human ships among them. She thought of the 12 people lost on the moon. She thought of Kyle and Lena watching that first drone near Pluto. She thought of Nate, Zoe, Eli, Briggs, and millions of others who worked in silence so the world could speak with strength. Earth hadn't just struck back. It had reached out. And in that reach it found not enemies but partners. The galaxy had been astonished, and in that astonishment a new age began.